Do you ever
Yes,
the
I
effort
booked
to
the
go and see
train,
him?
and I had a train strike. You know that.
Oh, every weekend there was a train strike. Every weekend.
I think some people maybe have got in your head.
It's a promise ring.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing a quick review of the MAFS UK reunion. So I had no clue this was coming, and then randomly on top of my MAFS Australia coverage schedule, this random video comes out being like review of Married at First Sight UK. And I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? Turns out they did a reunion of the previous 2 years of MAFS UK, which is great news for me because those are the only 2 seasons I've watched. Now I will say, if you're watching this and you're a fan of MAFS Australia, MAFS UK is like low-key a sleeper hit. Like, it's a bit slower and it's a bit less like obnoxiously dramatic. However, some of the conflicts here in MAFS UK are just devastating and hard to watch and feel really real. They build over time. They're not as like heightened and sort of like every episode explosion the way MAFS Australia is. They're very sort of subtle and sneak up on you. And then by the end of the episode, you're like, wow, I really have an idea of what makes these people and makes these couples tick. So we're going to go through this reunion. I'm just going to go like couple by couple and character by character, I guess. So first off, this reunion is full of just single people for the most part, all right? Most people have broken up, and the couples that do appear, I'm pretty sure all of them are pairings that have formed between contestants outside of what the original pairings were. So some of them are cross seasons as well. There are people from season 12 and 11 or whichever season we're up to. It's from multiple different seasons. So they've clearly all linked up on social media. But first we're going to talk about Lacy and Nathan. Now, Lacy and Nathan were one of the most promising couples from the original latest season of MAFS UK, and they're back, and this is grim. This is horrific, and it's horrific for Nathan. Normally in Married at First Sight, it's shitty men being awful to the women, but here, my lord, like, so basically Lacy gets back, Nathan gets back, Nathan's talking to the group basically being like, oh, I really wanted to see her, I wanted to make a relationship work, and every time we went to meet up, she was like, oh, the train line's down, oh, my cat ate my homework, oh, I can, you know, just every single time there was another excuse for her not to come. And then eventually they broke up. She said, let's be friends. And then according to him, she said, but let's stay together in the public eye for a showman so we can get book deals. If we look like we're together for a year, we get exclusive deals and shit. And so obviously Nathan was super offended by this and blocked her, rightfully so, like damn straight. So apparently she's really upset because she was blocked. So she shows up to the thing and she's like doing damage control, and she's like, yeah, Nathan blocked me and I just don't agree. That's never how you treat someone you love. And you can see the conflict brewing, all right? Like, because 2 people are going around giving 2 very different stories. She's blaming him or just leaving out the part where she was awful and just focusing on the part where he blocked her. And she's like, I don't know what happened. He just blocked me and then we broke up. So this comes to a head when they actually kind of like face off and try and chat about it.
You blocked me.
Yeah? Why did I block you, Nathan?
As soon as you finish the experiment, you turn into a completely different person.
If I'm coming to see you
Nathan,
every
can
weekend,
we just,
yeah?
like, this is not the Nathan that I went out with.
I've got a text message on my phone right now.
So you didn't say to me then, I think we should fake it.
Can we stop doing tit for tat?
And you're watching some dude get gaslit in real time. This was insane. Like, he's sitting there. I have never seen a more genuine display of emotion. Like,
Struggled.
I didn't struggle. Can I speak for a chance? Can I just speak once?
Not true.
compared to the way manipulative men have been crying and carrying on in Married at First Sight Australia, dude is upset, all right? Dude is genuinely devastated by the way he's been treated.
Chest. I'm going to read this anyway.
And she comes out with this letter, which was clearly like some PR agent or like her family member clearly wrote it being like, if you just get this letter across and everyone on TV sees it, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? Make sure you say it on air and everyone's going to hear it and believe you. So she like goes, no, I'm reading this letter. Do not interrupt me. I'm reading this letter. And the letter reads like bullshit. And Nathan is sitting there genuinely perplexed by her kind of like reframing of things. And there's this point where she goes, I don't know if people have got in your head or something, but like, I don't know where you're getting these ideas that I said showman's from. And he literally goes, what?
Asking me after to be in a showman.
Maybe it's a miscommunication. I think some people maybe have got in your head.
And it's such a good moment because he's genuinely bewildered. Like she's saying, hey, these clearly very specific events, these very specific things I did to you, they're not true and clearly a product of other people at this reunion when he's the one telling everyone at the reunion what she did. Like it makes no sense at all. And I just love his reaction here of like, what? He's like mid devastating cry session and he just can't help but be genuinely perplexed. If you're like a good vibe person, you can just kind of tell he's telling the truth. Like even in the Voxy interviews, he's talking about how he's devastatingly embarrassed and he doesn't really want to talk about it. And you can tell he's not being like, don't want to talk about it, all right? Like he's really, really upset. And then you just see Lacy kind of try and steamroll him and he's perplexed. And he's also really clearly hurt that she would do this to him. You know what I mean? It's one thing to break up. It's one thing to ask about a showman. It's one thing to just end a relationship clunkily, but to then like tell him that everything he went through didn't happen while trying to like salvage your PR is cooked. And it's weird because I actually quite liked Lacy during the season. I thought she was really cool, but here she comes off fucking awful. I don't know what was going on. Another great Nathan moment is when she starts defending herself to the table and she's like, I tried to see you, but there was a train strike. And he's like, train strike? There was a train strike every bloody week. It's so good. I love it. It's so good.
Do you ever make the effort to go and see him?
And I had a train strike. You know that.
Oh, every weekend there was a train strike. Every weekend.
And then she has the gall to be like, yo, I just want to have a civil chat with Nathan, but he keeps bringing up this showman's thing. And it's like, yeah, no shit, he's bringing up the showman's thing because it was an insane thing to say and completely validates his side of things. Like, what do you mean he keeps bringing it up? How are you going to have a chat about what went wrong with your relationship without bringing that up? So she's like, fuck it, I'm out. And she like leaves. She gets up and she leaves the table. And then in one of the best moments, no one comes after her. It was such a good moment. Everyone sits there and is like, yeah, that was a weird crash out and we do not align with her behavior. And then for some reason, Ella goes like, guys, are you going to go help her? Is anyone going to go do anything or are we just going to leave her? So then people get up. But I'm like, no, that was a good moment. Let her sit in her decision, in her behavior. But whatever, Ella had to say something, I guess. All right, next we have Erica. So I really liked Erica in her initial season. I thought she was awesome. I thought she was a good intruder. I thought she handled herself in conflict with, was it Tasha or Sasha? I get their names confused. But she handled herself in the conflict with Tasha really, really well. I also thought her and Jordan were really sweet for a while until they weren't. And then they just went at each other. But I like Erica. But turns out Erica has kissed Kieran in between seasons. So now we need to talk about Kieran and Christina. So Kieran and Christina were kind of like the high school sweetheart vibe of, was it the most recent season? Yeah. And she had premenstrual dissociative disorder, if I'm remembering correctly. And so that resulted in every time her period was approaching, or a lot of times her period was approaching, she had very, very intense kind of like PMS, like really intense and almost went into like a dissociative bipolar sort of state. I'm sorry if I'm being a bit ignorant here, but that was what I was gathering. She acted like essentially a different person, very heightened, very difficult by her own admission, right? And would push people away, like just a very difficult time for her. Now, this apparently pushed away Kieran, right? But I'm going to say, I think Kieran was kind of using that as a bit of an excuse. He did have this weird obsession with his ex. There was this really embarrassing moment in that season where he brought up like, you know, like, oh, you're doing things that remind me of my ex and blah, 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 blah. Like it was rough and it was a weird thing to bring up. And instead of just like checking behavior, like I would never do that. Do you know what I mean? If I was in a relationship and I went like, oh, I've been in a relationship where this happens before. I just don't think I'd ever be like, you remind me too much of my ex. We need to break up. Like, it's just a weird way of putting things. But regardless, they broke up and she was devastated. She really wanted a relationship with him to work. Tragic, all right? Like, he's allowed to break up with her. Shit happens. But I felt like he was a bit spineless. And this spineless nature carries into this episode because then he gets back. He's macked on with Erica, right? He hasn't told Christina and he doesn't need to. They're broken up. Fine. Fair enough. But then the most tragic moment of this episode is that Christina is showing up and in her Voxy interview, she's been like, oh, you know, I pushed him away with the whole PMDD thing, but I'm on medication and like I'm a new person and I'm healed and like it's not as intense anymore. And hopefully he can see the positive change I've made. I can tell him about the positive change I've made. Like now that my PMDD is somewhat sorted, maybe we can like reunite, reconnect and grow something. And this is a tough moment.
Coming into this dinner party, I couldn't feel any more confident. I'm new and improved. I am currently in PMDD now, but your girl's medicated. I feel larger than life. I feel like a bit of a knob. Mine and Kieran's future, we're going to be in each other's lives. The hope and want has gone. I know he is just my friend. Nothing more, nothing less.
Like, I felt awful for her. You know what I mean? It's that thing where, like, someone gives you a reason to break up with you, and it's probably not the whole reason, but you work on that reason, and then you think you can make it work. But meanwhile, he's macking off with Erica. It's really tough. I really felt for Christina here, and she genuinely looked broken throughout this episode. Eventually, Erica kind of calls out Kieran for not breaking the news to Christina earlier, so she brings up the fact that they've kissed, and it's a rough moment for Christina. I really feel for her, and throughout the episode, people have told Kieran that Christina still holds a flame for him. Just rough. Again, this show has a really raw, real feeling compared to Married at First Sight Australia, and this was a tough moment. It wouldn't be an episode of Married at First Sight without busting out the honesty box to cause drama, so they pull out the honesty box. Kieran then asks Christina from the honesty box, like, yo, is there any advice you'd give me moving into relationships moving forward? And she goes, yeah, like, you know, maybe don't look back in the past too much. He's like, what do you mean? And she's like, oh, you know, like comparing to your ex and stuff. He's like, I don't do that. No, I don't do that. It's like, bro, you literally did that. Like we have video footage of you doing that, and it was cooked. It was really strange how much you got caught up on that. And then for some reason, Shona and Matt together. So Shona was the one with that really good looking, weird as fuck dude. So he's gone. Was it Brett or Brad or something? So he's gone. Shona's here, and she's with Matt, who I remember getting really angry and gross before he left the season. But regardless, they're together. This dude, dead ass, after being in Married at First Sight, where you literally kind of get married to someone, after being on Married at First Sight, he settles on giving her a promise ring. Not an engagement ring, a promise ring. Like, I guess they needed a TV moment, but like, what the fuck?
So please take this as a vow that one day in the near future... It's a promise ring.
He's like, oh yeah, I'm giving you this promise ring, so we'll stay together forever. It's a promise. I'm like, dude, you're not 12. Like, what are you doing? Like, go get an engagement ring, or just don't say shit like that. Like, if I was Shona, I'd be like, what are we doing here? This is strange. Then we have Tasha. Gonna be real, I did not like Tasha. I thought her like combative argument style throughout the season was cooked. I don't have much to say about Tasha. There's this weird moment where she shows up and she sees Paul and instantly starts crying. But I think what was funny is when he shows up, his first line to her is like, oh shit, you actually look good. Like, implying that normally she didn't look good. It was just such a weird way to say that. Next, Sasha, who was with Ross, and Ross really gave me the ick too. I actually thought Ross was one of the most uncomfortable contestants I've seen in Married at First Sight UK or Married at First Sight Australia. He was deaf, if I remember correctly. And then in his arguments with Sasha, he would close his eyes, so then there was like no way he could like she could communicate with him at all. A pretty, like, the equivalent of going like la 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 la. He'd do that with his eyes while she was trying to like talk to him or communicate to him, which was awful. But then they also got in an argument where he threw a plate against the wall. I'm just like, dude, like, what are you doing? So anyways, they were trying to make it work. They then broke up. And then he paired off with someone new 2 weeks later. So I assume that was already cooking in the background. Not a great look. Whatever. Next, finally, we have this like encounter or face-off with Hannah and Holly. Now, Hannah was completely blasted by the mean girls of the group that season. Probably one of the hardest parts to watch of the season. She was roasted by her shitty partner, and then she was roasted by all the girls. And she goes to Holly, and look, like, Holly does give a good apology on paper. Holly takes accountability, gives a really good apology, actually validates the points she had against Hannah at one point. Like, Hannah brought up this idea of like, oh, are you acting in a way you'd want your daughter to act? And she's like, don't you ever bring up my daughter, yada, 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 yada. So she actually validated that and went, I didn't set a good example for my daughter. I liked the apology on paper, but I'm going to be honest, like, upon reflection, I do kind of sit there and go, this whole thing felt very PR, very calculated, very like, I'm going to smooth things over because this is my one chance to get on TV and smooth things over. Do you get what I mean? Like, yes, it is a really good apology. Like, if someone texted me this after a big fallout, I would 100% accept it. I think my concern is just like, is she just doing this for PR? Does she really believe this? She didn't have the most convincing facial expressions. And I felt really bad for Hannah last season. So I hope it was a legit apology, but I'm getting a pretty icky vibe. Regardless, if you've enjoyed this video, check out my full season review of UK MAFS. I did a full deep dive into that season. I'd love if you could check it out. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Consider getting a membership to this channel as well. I talk about everything I watch in podcasts, and also I'm covering White Lotus Season 3. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day.